What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with the pre-orders for the Switch 2 in the US being at this point delayed, people are looking around for any indication that this could be resolved soon with tariffs and different regions in the world, and then we can get the green light to be able to pre-order the system and prepare for that June 5th launch. Well, now some new information is unfortunately looking like bad news for Nintendo, and I will admit it does make me wonder if that $450 price for the Switch 2 is actually going to be going up in the US, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a potential Game of the Year candidate. At least that's what people are saying about a release that's coming up here in a couple of days, and it's certainly not one that I had on my radar. Then we also have a bunch of other pieces of news for the Switch 2, which does include achievements, and if they'll be there, well, we'll see if Nintendo finally folds on that one. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with an update on a situation that was ongoing when it comes to current Switch 1 games that'll see some sort of update for the Switch 2, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Party Jamboree, Kirby Forgotten Land. Those are all seeing upgrades, some with mostly just resolution and frame rate, and others will have just full-on downloadable additional content for it. Well, the concern was that in those cases that are like the Switch 2 big red banner at the top, it'll be the cartridge and then a code sort of next to it that'll be like a one-time use thing for your account. Well, it seems that might not actually be the case, and we could have everything on the cartridge. We can see this posted up. This is over on Go Nintendo had an update saying, according to the My Nintendo UK store, Switch 2 edition games include both the Switch 1 game and the upgrade pack on a single game card, meaning there's no download code in the box or download required. Nintendo Prime also posted up an image they had with a correspondence for My Nintendo showing this same thing, so at least right now, we're very hopeful that it will just be on a cartridge and that's it. And it'd also be really cool if it's a Switch 2 red cartridge for Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not necessarily going to go out and buy it again because I already have them and I have the Switch Online expansion pack tiers, so I can just download the updates. Kind of cool to know that it won't be a code in the box. It'll be a red cartridge, Switch 2 cartridge, everything there. But I guess we'll really see on release day when people can actually take these games home, open them up, and see what's inside. Also, we have a big update today for Assassin's Creed Shadows. We can see this over on Ubisoft's website. This is update 1.0.2. The release notes actually show some pretty good updates here. We have the patch sizes as well, with the largest one coming in on the Xbox Series X and S at 19.5 gigabytes. Smallest one being on the Mac, by the way, at 9 gigabytes. We have like horse auto follow, speed improvements, mastery nodes, reset, selling and dismantling multiple items, which that'd be good. Investigation board shortcuts, but the big ones I would say would be for like the PS5 Pro, adding PSSR support. So you will have to go into the settings and manually enable PSSR in the video tab of the pause menu. So just a heads up there. And then the other big one for me, they're uncapping the hideout to above 30 FPS on performance mode. Great, because that was such a noticeable thing. Be out in the world, performance mode, 60 FPS, you go to hideout and all of a sudden it's slashed into 30 FPS, cut in half, and it wasn't a great transition going between the two. So good to see that they're going to just uncap it. We'll see how the frame rate ends up there, but also having PSSR support added in. Curious how that looks versus what Ubisoft already had implemented at launch. It'll be live later on today, I think at 10 a.m. Eastern. It should be up, so check it out in a couple of hours. Oh, and we also had a quick update for Hollow Knight Silksong, as that was in the Switch 2 presentation, but just to avoid any confusion, we can see this posted up. This is from Matthew Griffin. This is the marketing and publishing for Hollow Knight Silksong at Team Cherry, saying Hollow Knight Silksong is coming to both the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2. So just in case you were concerned, like, oh, it's not going to the current Switch. No, it is, but also Switch 2. And that does make me think about that 120 hertz display in handheld mode. 120 frames for a game like Hollow Knight Silksong would be awesome. And actually at this point, completely expected since it's going to run on the Switch. I assume that'll be one of the big features that the Switch 2 has, which for like a precision platformer style game like that will be definitely welcome. So good to see though, it's on both Switch platforms, no issues there. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2 in the US, as pre-orders, we know now, have been delayed completely. Still waiting for some sort of update from Nintendo, and here in actually a day or two, we'll see Canada start to take pre-orders, and I guess we can kind of gauge how that goes in terms of sellouts. I assume for the most part, you're going to see the Switch 2 just sell out completely whenever it goes up for pre-orders, as again, we've talked about the initial early adopters tend to sell through those pretty quickly. It'll be more or less the second year, I think, to see how momentum continues for what is a fairly expensive system for Nintendo, all things considered there. But what's going on with the US? Well, of course, we saw what happened with the tariffs, and Nintendo had to react and basically pull pre-orders because, well, they have to figure out what they're going to do with the pricing. I mean, that is the long and the short of it. Can they still sell this thing at $450 in the US? I mean, you assume they could because they have a lot of money stored away, but Nintendo's a business, and I think people really need to figure this out and realize that that is the case for, like, it's not Mario running Nintendo. Okay, most of you know that, but still, the situation now really comes down to, it seems, where everyone's pointing to Vietnam, as while Japan and China have tariffs, a lot of Nintendo's manufacturing, they were trying to spread this out and diversify just in case something happened with the tariffs that would affect manufacturing for any one region. Well, Vietnam got slapped with 46% in terms of the tariffs, and that seems to have thrown Nintendo in a bit of a panic here and what had them pull pre-orders. So naturally, people are looking to what happens here with Vietnam. Could they maybe work all of this out, and then we're back on track for pre-orders with the Switch 2 in the US? Well, we can see this posted up. This is from Newsweek. That's right, I'm having to read Newsweek now because of gaming, you know. But anyway, Vietnam's offer to lower its trade barriers to delay the implementation of U.S. President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs has been rejected by a White House advisor. Well, that's not good. Okay, so from what we were seeing online, it seemed like they were trying to pull down to even 0%, but that's not necessarily going to be enough based on the reciprocal. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but really it comes down to, unfortunately, there's not a lot Vietnam seems to be able to do to avoid or come to some kind of negotiation around these tariffs. And it's going to be up to the US and the current administration for if those tariffs go down or away or anything. So not great for Nintendo right now because it seems like they're just kind of stuck, but they are sticking with the June 5th release date on this system. And, well, maybe they worked all that out beforehand. Maybe they said, you know what, there are going to be tariffs. Let's just go with this higher price point on the off chance that it is 46%. Well, we can see this posted up. This is from Nintendo Life. It says, but President of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser, has told The Verge and Wired that these previous tariffs, that is, prior to the Trump administration's new international tariffs on goods from across the world, was announced on April 2nd, 2025, were not factored into the price itself. Well, that's, yeah, it's not good. Now, I will say this. The current ones, like, they could have maybe said, you know what, maybe it'll be 20%. We'll go to $450 and $500 with the bundle, and that'll mostly work out there. Certainly weren't expecting 46%. So sure, they could have pre-planned somewhat, but it didn't seem they planned for 46%. We know that because you can't pre-order right now anyway, April 9th. So very reactive from Nintendo, obviously, once all that was announced, and we're still kind of hanging out waiting. But I'll tell you now, just based on how negotiations around Vietnam with tariffs have kind of fallen apart at this point, you might want to expect this system to come back more expensive. I know it sounds crazy because of everything that's been going on with Nintendo when it comes to just the perception around their pricing, which $80 Mario Kart World will certainly do that to you. It's not going to be great. I don't really think Nintendo is going to eat the cost of the tariffs or anything and keep this at $450 or $500 if they can't figure out a way around it. And it's hard to say how much more it would be. I mean, people are guessing, oh, maybe it'll be $500 and $550. It's possible. But at this point, I'm kind of bracing for that headline to pop up that Nintendo has reopened pre-orders and it's just more expensive. So that's kind of where I am now, and I'll just be somewhat surprised, relieved even, if it stays at $450, which is weird to say because it's a $450 or $500 system, and you're like, whew, could have been worse. Next up, let's talk about a game that is making waves right now online because the reviews dropped yesterday, and they're a lot higher, I think, than people were expecting. Now, the way this has been described to me is it's a roguelike puzzle game, and it's called Blueprints. Now, we can see the Metacritic score currently sitting at a 92. Now, this is on 23 positive reviews, 0 mixed, 0 negative on PC. Some reviews are starting to come in on PS5 or Xbox, but this is where it's been reviewed the most at this point. I will say it's dropping into Game Pass as well as PlayStation Plus Extra on April 10th, so just in a few days, which obviously a nice benefit there to see a game like this just get dropped in. And I mean, we saw it, we were aware of it. PlayStation had mentioned it in their State of Play a month or so ago. So seeing this pop up and this review scores, I had to take a look. So Digital Spy gave it 100, saying Blueprints is a special game full of mysteries, secrets, and mind-blowing moments with an addictive gameplay loop. It's so good that labeling this as one of the best puzzle games of all time feels like a disservice. Instead, it's possibly the most memorable experience I have ever had playing a game, and I can't stop thinking about it. Wow. That's certainly selling you on the game. I mean, again, it's going to the Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. GameLiner says, Blueprints is a strategic masterpiece with much more to it than meets the eye. Each playthrough feels unique thanks to the draft system, while permanent upgrades preserve your progress. Without a doubt, this is one of the best games of the year. Eurogamer with 100 saying, I wanted more strange possibilities from the spaces I lived around. With Blueprints, I get that. What an extraordinary game this is. Let's go to the opposite end of the review scale, which from what I could see on PC, the lowest review is an 80 by Game 8. Says, Blueprints is a subtle yet deeply satisfying puzzle game that invites you to slow down, think carefully, and unravel its mysteries one thoughtful step at a time, guiding you through a beautiful, tangled labyrinth of your own creation. IGN, by the way, gave it a 9, so it even avoided the usual 7 or 8. Hey, you know what they say? Blueprints' ever-shifting halls and rich web of enticing mysteries easily secure its place as an all-time puzzle great. Wow, okay. I'm not like the biggest puzzle fan, like technically in terms of games, but I'm intrigued by some of the aspects of this apparently being a very unique experience. Also, roguelike puzzle game. I can't really think of many titles like that. So just the fact that this might be a unique title, but also high quality and very interesting. Yeah, okay. I'll give it a shot. I'll download it either on PlayStation Plus Extra or Xbox Game Pass, depending on, I guess, where I feel like playing it at the time, and see what we have here. And maybe I'll talk about it on the podcast this weekend. So we'll see how Blueprints turns out. Next up, let's talk about the Switch 2 and the potential for achievements, which I know there are many people out there just don't care about achievements. Like, whatever, if I get a trophy, great. If I get an achievement that pops up for 10 gamer score, great. But it's not the be all end all or something that people necessarily seek out. However, there are many people where they do indeed pick a platform just based on if the trophies or the achievement system. Steam achievements, Stadia had achievements. Seems like mostly Nintendo has kind of stayed away from all of this. And they did explain a reason why, which I'll get to in a minute. But first, let's see if the Switch 2 has system-level achievements. This we can see is posted up. This is over on VGC. It says, when asked by Polygon if the new system will break from Nintendo tradition and introduce system-wide rewards for playing games, Nintendo's Vice President of Player and Product Experience, Bill Trinan, said, nope. And that's the answer. That's it. No. We're not doing achievements. Now, I will say, Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they have achievements in that phone or that application you use on your phone with the Switch 2 enhancement stuff. So, look, Nintendo has kind of dabbled in achievements. Usually, it's achievements that are built into the game itself, like Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. They have kind of like achievements that pop up there, but again, it's in the game. It's implemented in. It's not system level, but it's there popping up as you do certain things. And in fact, some games will even give you stuff for the achievements, like in the game, currency or experience or whatever, right? But Nintendo they've talked about this before when it comes to system level achievements. And the only thing that's kind of unfortunate here is I feel like this is a spot that's kind of stagnated a bit in gaming. Like, achievements were really cool when they first showed up, but it's sort of plateaued and just been kind of like, sure. I mean, again, and there's a pull for people who are very completionist driven and they want to get the platinum trophy or the 1,000 out of 1,000 gamer score on Xbox. But there hasn't been anything new with achievements in a long time on either platform, I feel like. Nothing like groundbreaking or next generation defining for it. And that's actually where I think Nintendo could come in and just come up with something weird and different, have a unique spin on it that Sure, other platforms definitely copy, but that's the idea, right? All three companies are participating in the space, like the manufacturers for these systems, coming up with new and interesting ideas and at times passing them around. Nintendo's just been kind of on the sidelines, and a lot of it, they say, comes down to they want people to focus on the game first and not necessarily buy in or participate just because of trophies or achievements. Still, it is proven to be very good for keeping people on your platform, and engagement is very important for, well, all these companies now. Nintendo themselves talk about it consistently, how many active users they have with the Switch, and it's very high for them right now. So it's interesting they didn't come up with just something, because you feel like you would figure that out before the generation starts, and I guess it's gonna be another generation where there's no kind of achievement system, and who knows, maybe Nintendo will never go that route despite including them in some of their games periodically, right? So there we have it. No achievement system for the Switch 2, and not really something I expect Nintendo to come up with even halfway through the generation. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about those game key cards for the Switch 2. A lot of concern around this one, because it wasn't completely clear how this was going to function exactly. For a while, people thought every game on the Switch 2 was a game key card and there were just no regular cartridges. Not the case, obviously, as we do see things like Cyberpunk 2077 that has been talked about at length as using a 64 gigabyte cartridge, which is, it's pretty good for that and Phantom Liberty, and it being still coming in at $70. I think all the way around, that's a good release for CD Projekt Red. But game key cards, can you actually pass them around? Can you resell them? Can you trade them in? That's a question I've seen people ask. Well, we got an answer to that. We can see this posted up. Now, this is over on GameSpot, and this is coming from Nintendo's Tetsuya Sasaki, saying, so key cards will start up on the console or system that is slotted into, so it's not tied to an account or anything. So there you have it. Yes, it has to download all the data. That's the way it works. It's a little key card you pop in your system, and it will then signal to a server to start the download. Once it's been downloaded, though, to your system, and it exists there, say, on your SD card or on your system memory, it will just function like a regular game. So it is still kind of like PlayStation 5 and Xbox in that regard, but people point out, hey, you have to install it off of a disc still. It's on that disc most of the time. See, this is the thing I think companies have kind of slipped by some gamers. Technically, the game key already exists, and it exists on some PlayStation 5, some Xbox games. I know people say smart delivery, yes, but there are some games where it's literally like 70 megabytes or something on the disc, and you download all of it. Black Ops 6, anyone out there buy that physically? In the comments, let me know. Did you pop it in and go, oh wait, it already installed, that was fast. Oh wait, it was just the launcher. That's all that's on the disc. You then have to download everything else. And but then once it exists on your system, it just launches normally. This is something that's been ongoing and kind of working into the rotation of game releases. And look, I know it's better to have it on the cartridge. Yes. There are some publishers that just don't want to spend the money on the cartridge cost. That's just the way it is. I just being upfront about it here. So like Street Fighter 6, that would probably have to go on a 64 gigabyte cartridge. They're selling for $60. They say, no, we don't want to spend the money on that cartridge. You can just download it. We'll give you something that maybe has 100 megabytes on it for the license, and you just store it on your SD card, and that's it. It is better than the download. Remember the download banners, the blue ones we had? Those were one-time use codes. This, though, you can take out of your system, you can let someone borrow it, you can trade it in, you can sell it. That still exists. Just understand, you're going to need not only an internet connection when you first pop it in for the first time to download, but you also need the space for it. So make sure you check all that out before you buy it. And I think a lot of this is going to mostly fall into those third-party releases that are quite large. Although I guess you look at Bravely Default, that's 11 gigabytes, and that's still a game key. So who knows? Maybe if it's cheap, but also smaller in terms of file size, still going to be a game key. But that's just kind of the way it is. Nintendo introducing this now at the start of the generation, just preparing for what I assume to be some of these big-time third-party ports that are going to come over and figure out a way to circumvent that fairly expensive cartridge cost. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, how long do you think Nintendo will continue to support the current Switch? Okay, 2027 is the top spot here at 48%. Wow, 26 and 28 are like tied, 20 and 19. And then some of you think this Switch is going to go 2029 or even beyond, which would be ridiculous. I can't rule that out though. Some of you may be onto something, because like Just Dance, that could go to the end of time for all we know. Ubisoft was putting out Just Dance for a long time on the Wii. not recently, but what, like 6 or 7 years ago or something. Maybe it's was it 2018? I'm trying to remember what the last version of Just Dance was on the Wii. It went on for a long time, though, I will say that. So you'll have these weird third-party sporadic releases at times. If they can get it there and the eShop is still available and open, they'll probably try to make it happen just because of the large install size. More so for Nintendo, I kind of feel like 2027 is about right, but who knows? It really comes down to how the Switch 2 sells. Maybe it has, we'll say, a slower start. Like, we'll stick with the Switch for a little while and have a longer cross-gen period. We'll see. But the Switch 2 sales, I think, are going to determine a lot for how Nintendo moves in the next few years. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Berserker, who says, I can't wait to see what Monolith Soft is able to pull off with the Switch 2 hardware. Yeah, I think they're going to do some very, very impressive stuff with the Switch 2. Like I said, the system itself is very, very capable. Some developers are comparing it to like, oh, it's like a mid-tier PC is what some are saying right now. And we're already seeing some early comparisons and it looks good. It's holding up even above the Xbox Series. That's at this point. And Monolith Soft has always kind of worked with the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch. They haven't worked with, I don't know if I was going to say the Switch 2 is a powerhouse, but nothing on that level yet. And you see what they do with some of these lower powered systems, right? Build massive worlds that just should not run on these devices. Again, I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition right now. That is a game, by the way, I hope gets a decent enough upgrade. I think if they just uncap the frame rate and just push the resolution up, that's all it needs, which is crazy because it's a Wii U game from, 10 years ago, just about, right? That's insane. It should not be look that good on the Switch, but then also what it could look like on the Switch too. Hoping for that enhancement patch or hopefully free upgrade, and then what they have next. I'd like to see them move on from Xenoblade. I know not all Xenoblade fans want to hear that, but I wouldn't mind seeing them build a brand new IP, a new world, new universe to explore, while maybe still paying homage to some of their older roots with the RPGs that they've made, the last like 10, 15 years or so. So really, really cool stuff. Exciting to see what they have, but also just the Switch 2 in general. I'm curious how far some of these developers can really push this thing. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear what Doug Bowser and Bill Trinen from Nintendo had to say about some of the prices for the Switch 2, and yes, that does include Mario Kart World at $80. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.